Okay, so we started the recording. Good evening, everybody. Maestro Orlando Giovanni from Onstiora. Tonight, our class is a fundamentals of spear work. We're going to focus on thrust-oriented SCA Rapier spear. Few things I want to caveat this class with. Who is this class for? This class is for anybody that wants to take the class, technically, but I'm actually aiming the class at those people that are either new to spear and want to get out on the field, but they want to train some mechanics first. I'm also aiming the class at those people that may be experienced with spear, but they want a little more developed system to work with their newer spearmen, spearwomen, whatever. So so a lot of what's here, I've got references that I'll provide, and I'm also going to post up in the event. Okay. A lot of it is pulled primarily from Vadi and Fiore's writings on spear. I like their systems because their spear systems are very similar to their two-hander systems, and not too far off for their single sword systems. And so I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. But that said, I'm going to try not to bore everybody with too many Italian words, and I've also tried to tie this system back into what we already do with Rapier and thrust-oriented systems in general. So with the SCA Rapier spear, Annella's back.
Yay.
Okay, so we've got Anastasia is here with the spear. I want to talk about the parts of the spear. At the very top of the spear, several names for this: the foible, the iron, the pike. The Englishmen often, when they said pike, they actually meant the actual iron head of the spear. A little further down, now you've got what we call the haft of the spear. And then finally, the very end of the spear is called the heel. Not very complicated, right? Now, one thing to remember with period systems with the spear were both thrust and haft oriented, i.e. they had percussive hits. SCA Rapier spear does not allow percussive hits, tip cuts, or draw cuts. So effectively, it's less than a rapier because you don't have draw cuts either. You only have thrusts. So that's one of the things I struggled with this system. I fought spear on the Shiv side for many years, and so one of the things I struggled with this system was to make it work for just thrust oriented. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of the spear real quick. So I've got a small slide presentation here. Okay, so 16th century, this is de Grassi. As among all other weapons which are worn by the side, the single sword is the most honorable, as being such a one which is left capable of deceit of any other. So among the weapons of the staff, the pike, meaning the spear, is the most plain, most honorable, and most noble weapon of all the rest. Pole arms were highly valued in period. I'm not going to read through this, but if anybody's familiar with George Silver, he secretly hated the rapier. Okay, not so secretly. He wrote quite often about how he disliked it, but he goes on to say that he'll, since it's held in such high esteem by others, he'll go ahead and teach it anyway. But George Silver was also a huge fan of pole arms and thought they were the superior weapon. where are you going to go to talk about our style of rapier spear? Now, why did I choose 1409 up through the end of SCA period? Primarily, I wanted to look at those periods where you see more often the academic teaching of the spear, first of all. And there are examples before 1409, but I also wanted to look at those masters that were focusing on the duel and civil combat, if that makes sense. So that's one of the reasons I chose to look here. So, and I'm going to make these slides available for everybody afterwards as well. We've gone over the parts of the sword, or the parts of the spear, my bad. The foible or the débelet is the very end of it. The iron or the pike is generally what you would refer to the tip as. The haft, and then the heel. Okay, spear foundations. Now we're going to get started. First, stance and grip. So let's go ahead and switch over to our view here. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're gonna highlight our this guy right here. If we can. There we go. Okay, so everybody should be able to see the pel now, and I'm going to bring out my spear as well. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. And I've got all the slides right here. So anybody that was planning to join in on their own pel with their own spear or a spear simulator, this is the time to go grab it and join in. If you haven't been to my other classes, I usually like to give everybody time to practice each of the things that I go over. Okay, so I'm going to pull the way for now so that they can see us from both sides, if there's two of us. Okay, so generally, the stance with the spear, can everybody hear me?
Gotcha.
We can hear you.
They can hear us good? Okay. So generally, the stance with the spear is very similar to the rapier. You have a lead foot and you have a non-lead foot in the back. Toe towards your opponent, generally back weighted. And then we're going to start here in what I like to call the second guard, and we'll go over the guards here in a second, with our hand generally a little bit forward. You want it to be just a bit tip heavy. So when you let up on that back hand, just be a bit tip heavy. And then your rear hand position anywhere along the haft, but not over the heel. That's not allowed in the SCA. In period combat, you would very often put your hand behind the heel and press that firmly into your opponent's chest and guts with reckless abandon. But we don't do that in the SCA. So this is your general stance right here. So let's look at our guards. So I'm going to bring up a nice little graphic that I've got for the guards. Okay, so I've broken the guards down into 4 guards. There's actually 6 that I'm going to go over in this class. And if you can't see my slideshow, then tell me. So low guard, bastard high guard, straight guard, and then finally high guard. Now, I don't like to use prima, seconda, terza, and quarta for these because they're missing one of the hand positions, which is quarta. But all of the other hand positions actually are here. And so this is a great way to move through them. So we're going to start here with our assistant, Anastasia. And and walk through each of the guards. Okay, so first guard. Everybody that's doing this along with us, grab your spear at this point. Okay, so we call this the low guard. This is actually Porta de Ferro for you Italian speakers. The low guard, you want to hold your rear hand slightly out from your body at just above hip level. At about or above hip level. The front of your spear is going to be either pointed up at your opponent's head like this, or just slightly down. So up at your opponent's head or just slightly down. Not like this. This is a more advanced guard that I'll get into in another class. So we're going to work on this. This is our low guard. So second guard, which is the bastard high guard, very easy to move into. You're going to take your rear hand and you're just going to slide it up into about what would be palm out to right there. Tip is down. We've moved our right hand up to just about ear level. From here you can move the tip a little lower or a little bit higher, but it wants to be about in this area here. So that's our second guard. So our third guard, which is we'll call it the straight guard. Some people call it the middle guard. Is just going to be bringing the front of the rapier up, and it's straight in line with your ear.
Spear.
Spear. My bad. I say the word rapier a lot in my life. So now we're gonna go to the fourth guard, which is the high guard, bringing the hand all the way up. This is alta in Italian, and then generally you're gonna do a mezzo or a mezza volta with that front hand to turn it here. Not mandatory to be in the proper guard, but in general you're gonna move up and turn that hand like that, and that's your high guard. So let's review that again. Grab your spears. First guard, the low guard. Tip on your opponent's face. Backhand at your hip. Second guard, just bring that backhand up to your ear. Third guard is the straight guard. Fourth guard, straight up in alta. This is the imbricata of spear. Although that term is not used by Fiore or Vadi that I know of. Lock that arm straight up. There we go. And then back down. First guard. Turn that hand back around, palm up. Right? And I like adding the turn of the hand because it's good practice anyway. So, first guard, hip on your opponent's face. Bastard high guard, just turn it straight up, palm out. Straight guard, high guard, straight guard, bastard high guard, low guard. One more time, everybody, in your first guard. Second guard, up to the ear. Straight guard, high guard. Back down, straight guard. Bastard high guard. And then back down to the low guard. So these are the four primary guards. Now, we'll go into more on how these defend. But these are true guards in the sense that you use these for stringering, string array, stringering, constraining, whatever term it is you prefer. But these are truly your constraining guards. Here, I'm constraining Anastasia with this line. She has to disengage to get the shot or overpower my blade or my spear. I'm going to keep doing that.
Yes.
Same thing from here is if she's low, I come in bastard high guard to pull it around. I've constrained and parried that shot. Same thing if she withdraws and then tries to shoot high, I come in to here and bring it back in Puerto de Ferro. So those are how the guards work. Truly constraining guards. Okay, so I've mixed this up a bit. Generally, if I'm teaching any thrust or edge-oriented single sword system, I always start with footwork. But for this, I wanted to start with the guards. And I wanted to start with actual spear work because the two guards that I'm going to end with require some footwork with them. So we're gonna end with those. Okay, so changing leads, cambiamento. So this is a key skill for the spearman, the ability to change leads. So I'm gonna show you what this is exactly. So back to the Pell. So I want to demonstrate a strength and a limitation of the spear. So go ahead and thrust out to here. Just hold it there, right? Now follow me as I move around, right? Pretty easy, right? Now from here, same thing. Follow me as I move around to here. It's a little more difficult, right?
Yeah.
The hips you have to employ the hips more. You don't have as much leverage. You can't turn as well. In general, you are going to have the most accuracy with your thrusts starting from somewhere around center to about, I would say, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So from here to here. Anything from from noon to 3 starts to get more and more difficult because of the way that your body is turned. You no longer have the ability to step into it. You can step around with it, like this. In melee, especially, but many times in the duel, you have to be able to change hands. And this means that you have to have the ability to, so move over this way. I'll shoot it at Anastasia, just keep moving that way. And I'm just going to come out right there. But now move over this way. And then as she moves over this way, to be able to change hands so that I can now come in. Now, notice that change of hands included not just changing my hand position on the haft, but it also included passing one of my feet forward or backwards. You can pass forward or pass backwards. Doesn't matter. But generally how it works is that first you want to bring the hand at the rear up to the front, like this, so that the two hands meet. And then you want to pass the other foot forward or backwards, and then slide the other hand backwards. Now, same thing. Slide the hand up, pass, and slide your right hand forward. From the right side, this is a good opportunity to pick up your spear and work on this. So, from our first guard, take your right hand, slide it up to meet the left hand. Pass forward, sliding that hand back. Same thing, bring the left hand up to meet the right, slide it back, and you're ready. That is a basic change of hands, most foundational change of hands there is. It's a good idea to get in the habit of practicing the change of hands as you work. Now, there is also a change of hands with a thrust. Change of hands with a thrust is you bring that backhand forward to meet the other one as you thrust, and then you pass forward with the other hand. Same thing passing backwards. You bring the backhand and the half forward, and then you switch the hands back. It's much easier to train this slowly at first than it is to train it quickly and get it wrong. Work on the mechanics of it. So, one more time. Regular change of hands without a thrust. You're going to bring that back hand up and pass at the same time, and then change the hand to the rear. Passing backwards, we'll bring that left hand forward, bring the right hand back, and pass backwards. Okay, so that's change of hands.
And we have a question from Nicole.
Okay, Nicole, what's your question?
It's right there. Yeah.
Oh, we got it. Okay. Are these guard positions from Vadi, or is there a different primary source you are using? Yes, Vadi is the primary source for these. And I have references at the end of the slide presentation, plus I'll post them as well. But these don't differ much from Fiore's guards either, which Vadi was really just building on them anyway. But yeah, that's one of the primary sources for these guards. It's not precisely as Vadi describes them. Earlier versions of this class, I went into extraneous details about Vadi and the specific terms that he used, and I decided that I wanted to match this up more with thrust-oriented Rapier to get people out on the field. For the change of hands, is there a difference for a step forward versus a step back? No, there really isn't. As far as which hand moves, it's almost always, there are always exceptions to every rule. But the rule for this one is that the backhand moves forward to meet the front hand. The only difference is that if you are executing a change of hands with a thrust, then your hand moves the haft forward. If you're just executing a change of hands, then your hand just moves forward up the haft to meet the front hand. Good questions. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. Okay, so footwork. Now we're going to get into footwork. The footwork in Spear is nearly identical to the footwork that you find in most later period Rapier systems, especially in thrust-oriented Spear. So, I didn't put it on the Pell, did I?
No, you didn't.
Going back to the Pell. Okay, so take that lane, I'll take this one. Well, you can face me, yeah. Okay, so advances. Same advance that you are used to in your 16th century Italian Rapier. Advance, pressing off with your rear foot and stepping with the front foot. So press and step. And advance, and advance, and advance. Retreats are exactly the same as well. Press off with the front foot. Retreat. 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 Passes, pretty much the same, except for you are going to include either a change of hand or a change of lead, or a one of the window guards. We'll go over the window guard here in a second. So I'm just going to talk about the change of lead. So passing forward, same thing. You bring your back hand up, pass, and then bring the front hand goes to the back. We're going to pass forward one more time. Same thing. Bring it up and come back. And pass forward one more time, up and back. And now we're going to pass backwards. Same thing. We bring the hand up and back. Pass backwards, up and back. Pass backwards one more time, up and back. Just like that. Now, interesting moves like a volta works the same with the spear. It's just a giant rapier at that point. So all of your voids are pretty much the same. If I'm going to void to the left, I'm going to come in, I'll void to the left, I'll come up in straight guard and attack all at the same time, just like this. If Anastasia has her guard low, like that, then as I come in, I may void off to the left. If she comes in for an attack, I may void off to the left to miss that shot, just like this. So your voids, your footwork, almost exactly the same. The only thing that changes is the way that you constrain the line, but even those constraints are mostly the same. Any questions on footwork before I move on? None? Okay. Now, window guards. So, controversial in what we do. The window guard is generally used to, it's kind of the flank guard of spear. It's generally used to quickly guard on a line while opening up an attack for yourself at the same time. This isn't the kind of guard that you just do because you felt like it was a good thing to do, unless you're training, because it's also the kind of guard that if you're not trained at it, you're not going to do it well. It does require extremely precise timing to get it just right. But if you get it right, you can really make a difference with this guard. So pass. That's why we saved it. So it's passing guard.
Oh, okay.
Yep, tip forward all the time. Yep. You're going on to the advanced sections already. Okay, so we're going to switch over to the Pell, and Anastasia and I are going to walk everybody through this. What's that?
He said I might stumble through it.
Okay, so I'm gonna demonstrate it first. Am I good on the camera?
Check.
So
Yes, you are in frame.
okay, so generally speaking, you would start here. The basic idea with the window guard is I'm either passing forward or passing backwards into this guard. So with a pass forward, it's going to be similar to a change of leads, except I'm not going to actually change the leads. It reduces some of the fumbling that you might get with a change of leads, and it also closes off this outside line over here. So you pass the back foot forward, and at the same time, you're going to bring your spear down like this, almost straight up and down. And in practice, we'll get tighter than this. But we're gonna get a little extreme here. And then you're gonna pass that back foot forward, and you're gonna end up like this. Window guard, see? This is left window. I'm looking through the window made by my hack and my two arms. And then to leave this guard, you can either pass forward or backwards again. So I pass backwards, same thing, bring it around. Notice I did it a little tighter that time. I didn't bring the tip off line so far. And so the more practice you get at this, the tighter you can get this guard as you come in. A good way to get this guard as tight as possible is to get that vita, the waist, out of the way, right? So as you come in, bringing it around, boom. So you may be asking yourself, well, where is this really all that useful? It actually has a couple of good uses, but come on in, Chrissy. We'll give you an example here. So for one thing is if you've got a line, you really want to get that, attack that line. Go ahead and switch up your lead. There you go.
She isn't in frame.
Okay, so come on back here.
There you go.
There
You're
we go.
both in now.
Okay, so here, Christy comes in maybe with this high straight shot right here, and I want to change up a lot of what's happening here. This is right out of body with the play that he talks about. Is that then as she's coming in, I would come in and take this window guard here and take that shot at the same time. See that again. Bring it in, come up, window guard, and I'm in here. Now, body doesn't describe it in great detail. I don't believe this is a simple stringering that he was trying to display. I really believe as Anastasia comes in for that strike, I'm coming in and actually actively guarding with my hand as I get my foible into her face. Does that make sense? So fun guard, but it does take a bit of work to get it just right. If you are trained at it, you will find several situations where you use it. But you can also be a very good spearman without ever doing the window guard. Let's not forget that Body wrote his manual primarily as a resume to the House of Sforza in Milan, and so in general, those guys like to throw in a couple of really cool moves that sort of made them stand out. But Fiore talks about the window guard as well. So it's actually very commonly talked about. So it's hard to tell. That's why I included this one. It's hard to tell where this falls in those categories. But once again, it's something you had to be trained at. Timing has to be just right. If you get the timing right, it works. Let's try practicing that one more time. So start in low guard. Backhand at your hip. Tip a little bit on your opponent's face. As Anastasia comes in for that outside shot, we'll bring it up, and we switch in. See how this saves me the time of making the change of hands. I still get that constraint. Now she's going to have to back up rapidly to try and get anything, but I may already be in her guts at that time. And even if I'm not, that move alone could put her off of her game, just enough for me to get the very next shot. So even if I miss on that one, I may get the very next shot. Okay.
Have another question here. And
What is it? What's the question?
Nicole again. Was it or any others used more in hardness than in unarmored combat? I remember that there was some longsword guards in Fiori that were really used only used in hardness. Hardness.
Hard.
Um,
Hard suit?
read it. I don't know if it's pronounced.
Harness. Harness.
Harness.
Harness is another word for armored.
Yeah.
Your armored combat, or for armored the armored kit that you would wear. We call it your harness.
Mhm.
So when they say harness, they mean, and usually it means plate, mix of plate and chainmail.
Mhm.
So good question. I would say that neither Fiore or Vadi actually come out and say this is best used in harness. I do know that the only examples I have of them using this, or the only examples I have from Vadi and Fiore that I could find were in civil attire, not martial harness. So but I can't say whether that meant that was their recommendation just based on that. So I can imagine in full harness that this would be a difficult move to make. So that may be a good reason that I haven't seen too many examples of this in full harness.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
There's more of a addition to your thing
Yeah.
that was above it. I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry. The window also shortens up your range so you can get in your opponent's face after you gain the line, which allows for the stabbing of the face.
Yes.
Oratio.
Oratio.
Yes. And the point there is that you never want to follow up a move like the window. You never want to really follow up any audacious move with a retreat. You always want to follow up an audacious move with another audacious move. There's no better way to fail than to follow audacity with timidity. So once the window fails, as it might, your very next shot should be a withdrawal riposte as quickly as possible before Anastasia gets her foible in your face. Spear is violent. It's extremely violent, and it's a close-in sport. It's not. These aren't 12-foot or 24-foot pikes. This is a get in your face sport. It's whoever can ride the other person's spear down first. Good question, or good comment. Anything else?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, good. Audacity with audacity, not timidity.
Can you show them right window too?
Now we're getting down to the last 15 minutes, so we'll move on. I don't want to spend that much time on the window guards anyway, because we haven't gone over thrust yet. Okay, so we're going to review five thrusts, 4 primary thrusts, and then the 5th one is one that you should be very familiar with.
Should I stop the screen share?
Oh yeah, go ahead and stop the screen share. Sorry.
Just the red button, right?
Yeah, just the one that says stop the screen share.
Yeah, stop share. There we go.
There we go. Okay, so punta is Italian for thrust. So we got basically you've got your thrust, which is moving both hands at the same time and thrusting. Now, you should practice your thrust from each of the 4 guards that we went over, because each of those 4 guards is designed in such a way that you can thrust from them. So, just like in Rapier, you might have, let's say, staccata, which is your rising thrust, and then your general thrusts are going to be from here, from the middle, and then the straight thrust, and then this is very similar to imbricata, which is that which is that dropping
Yeah.
from above thrust with your spear. So it's very important that you practice all of your thrusts from each of the 4 guards. The next one is the carried thrust. The carried thrust is basically the pull cueing. Pushing the haft through your hand as you thrust. Now, the next thrust that we're going to go over is the flung thrust. The flung thrust is a carried thrust where you stop carrying. So, usually includes a pass, either forward or backwards. So you can do this retreating, with a retreating pass, or with an advancing pass. So, we're going to pass forward and do a flung thrust. So you pass your foot, and you thrust at the same time, and then you bring it back and catch it, generally in porta de ferro. Which, by the way, these are both variants of porta de ferro. Porta de ferro stretta. We're not, okay, we'll stay away from too many Italian things. So, flung thrust, pass that back foot forward, thrust. Try to keep the spear up in front of you. It is your shield as well as it is a spear. So it's guarding you here. As things come in and you're bringing it back, you can continue to pull them away. Generally, I'll come back palm down. That way, I'm more defensive at that point. Wait for my opportunity. Flung it in again. Holding the spear up. That way it can guard. As you bring it back, then come back on guard. Same thing with the retreating flung thrust. So, with the retreating flung thrust, we're going to come in as we pass that foot back, fling it out like this, bring it in here. At this point, you can either decide to step back into your spear, or you can pass that front foot backwards again and grab it defensively. Great way to take advantage of this. Flung thrust, back to here, and then as you guard your opponent's spear out of the way, pass in and back up for that second thrust. Try that again. So, retreat, flung thrust, guard your opponent's spear, come in and come in for that second thrust. And then finally, well, no, not finally, but next to finally, this will be the last primary thrust, which is the thrust with a change of leads. We've already pretty much gone over this, but we'll do it one more time. So as you pass that back foot forward, you're going to, instead of bringing the hand up, you're going to thrust forward and then come back. Same thing if you're retreating, thrust it forward, bring that back hand up. One more time. Thrust it in, come back, retreating, thrust out, and bring it back. And then finally, non-primary thrust, but very important thrust to know. I call this the shortened thrust. Anastasia has shot her blade over here, or her spear over here. At this point, I have taken my spear offline. She is now rushing towards me. And see how she withdrew the haft in her hand, I withdrew my half, and we're now thrusting close to the iron, like this.
Mm-hmm.
See that again in slow motion. So, come over, I'll pace her blade down here.
Mm-hmm.
She brings it in, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back up a little bit. Okay, don't run it up on me this time. Yep, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how the shortening the thrust works is you're basically just walking your hands up. It is the change of leads, but without sliding a hand back. You're continuing forward. Bring one hand up, the other one up, other one, just like that. Don't try to do this. You don't want to let go of your hand. As soon as I do this, somebody that's smarter is just going to knock that spear out of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the spear in your hands. It's just like the change of leads. Slide it up, 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 up. Just like that. You don't gain much speed by trying to go over, and you also lose a lot of control of your spear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions on the thrusts? Nothing?
No.
Okay. Let's go on to the next thing, which is disengages and changing lines. So go ahead and just stop the screen share. Or,
Start.
yeah, screen share there. And then that one right there. Yep. Double click on it. There we go. And click on the screen once. There we go. Okay. Evasione.
Do I stop?
An important, what's that?
Tell
no,
me.
No, leave it up there.
Yep. Tell me when to switch it.
I'll tell you when to switch. Disengages. Very important skill in rapier. Very important skill in cut and thrust. Really a very important skill in just about all armed combat like this, and it's very important in spear as well. So, very simple disengages. So from here, as Anastasia strikes into my inside, and I parry her spear off, and then I'll come in for the shot. She can very easily disengage under and take that shot right there.
They didn't see any of that. You didn't tell me to
Oh,
switch it back
never mind.
over.
Stop the screen share.
We can do that.
Just do a nice disengage. Don't worry about the ball. Okay. So, same thing here. She comes in. I parry. As I parry, she just disengages right under.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. Same thing from here. If we are opposite sides like this, I'll parry off, and she disengages under that way. Really not very complex. Another common disengage is the withdrawal of your spear with a riposte. So, a lot of times this is nice to do as a feint. So she knows that I have this line here closed off fairly well, right? So what she might do is feint a shot forward, boom, withdraw, and then strike in at the same time. See that again. One more time. Just like that. What I would say is the best rule about a disengage, especially if it's if you were disengaging some action like a parry, wait till your opponent has their spear on your spear. Wait for that tactile sensation of the spear touching your spear, then react with the disengage. That's the moment when you know that they have committed to that parry or that action. Now, there are counter disengages as well. So I can very easily, as she comes in, as she disengage under my blade, like that, I can very easily disengage around her blade and take that void to strike. Same thing as if I lead with a disengage. Of course, the rule is that she should then parry. So if I'm here, I lead in with a disengage, parry and strike. So the rules are pretty much the same. Disengage against a parry, and parry against a disengage. Until you hit the point where the rule is no longer enforced. So, any questions on disengages? No?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. So, next thing we're going to talk about, I'm not going to bring up the slide for this because it's just words anyway. So we're going to talk about three basic parries that you should practice. Parrying an inside attack, parrying an outside attack, and then parrying low and parrying high. So basically, if I'm here at my low guard, and Anastasia attacks to the inside, I'm just going to parry out to here. And of course, from here, I can always change up into a higher guard, straight guard or something like that, or just take the attack straight in like this. Now notice, as I parry though, and then slowly, I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. The main difference is that my tip stays on my opponent. We can sit here and go back and forth if we just keep slapping at each other's rapiers, but never actually able to get anything in because we're just going to keep parrying each other. At that point, it's really just a game of who has the slowest parry. What you want to remember is the spear can move away from your body. You can use that half. So as I strike in on this outside line here, Anastasia can press the blade away. Notice that her tip is on me, and my tip is just shooting into midair. So now, inside, say that I'm here, and she comes in for that inside attack as well. Now, the inside attack is a little bit more difficult. Notice it's very hard to actually make a parry without moving your feet or anything that doesn't bring that tip offline. Very difficult to do this. At this point, now, what you really want to look at is if you parry here, your options for a repost are very small without doing either a window or a change of leads or something like that. And that's why basically with these outside parries or like this, that you just want to parry and then wait for the next action. Because at that point, you come in at my shoulder, you really wanted to do something like the window that gets you in closer and keeps their blade out of the way, or their spear out of the way. So come in at the shoulder, you come in, press it out, and then you come in left window, just like that. But for just that outside parry, leave it at that. Because first thing she's going to do is I come in, she's going to go for that second move and just step it in. Yeah. You don't even have to do that. Yeah, you can just step it right in. Okay, so parrying low, bring it up into mastered high guard to here. So as I come, so if somebody shoots low, yep, just bring it into mastered high guard there. Same thing, high.
Oh.
Yep, bring it over, yep. Yep, just press it on.
Oh.
Yep, and press it out. Yep, there you go. Same thing, low, here, high, low. Yep, just like that. Okay. Any questions on basic parry? Bless you.
There you go.
No? Okay, good deal. Okay, so that concludes the foundational part. What time we got?
8.
It's 8:03.
It is exactly 8:03. I was going to try and dedicate some time to construction of a spear. I don't want to step on anybody else's class tonight. I think there's another class tonight, right?
I don't know.
No,
Right.
there's not.
No, there's not.
There's not?
No.
Okay. So let's take a look at, am I up at all? There we go. Where did the Pell go?
Oh, it is at the bottom.
Is it at the bottom?
Yep, it's at the bottom.
Is that it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Spotlight video. There we go. Okay. Let's talk about rapier spear construction real quick. So you'll notice in the new guidelines, and I've got them here because I don't want to get any of them wrong, but the page 14 of the new fencing, or the new fencing marshal's handbook for the SCA has the guidelines for the spear construction. Don't judge, I still have my experimental tape on my spear. That's because I just haven't gotten around to it. But I'm going to talk about some basics on the spear construction. I was hoping to have one of these tore down before now, but I kind of ran out of time to go over it. But the tips have to be at least 4 inches long. They have to be one of the commercially sold tips that are made for spear or other Western martial arts work that's out there. These are the Purple Heart tips, and I really like them. They bend easily. They really have very little very little pain factor, I guess you would say. They absorb a lot of the energy, but they still give you the feedback that you're hoping for, because one of the things that I found off-putting about the metal spear or the steel spears was that with the long rapier blade on them, they didn't give you the feedback that you needed to withdraw your power in the event that you put too much power behind it.
It doesn't allow you to break your wrist.
Yeah.
A way of saying it.
No, it doesn't. It breaks, but it doesn't give you the feedback. So the feedback is when I touch something that I can feel that I've touched it.
Yeah.
So these have good feedback. You can tell that you touched your opponent and not continue to drive the spear through their spine. So the construction, what I do basically for my construction is that I have the tip. I've taken the haft. I prefer unshaved rattan. I don't think that the shaved rattan holds up all that well. And I'll give you an example of one that's been around for a while. Right here, one of the shaved rattan ones. And that's what they start to look like after a while.
See?
Yeah.
You can't really
exactly.
see the bend from
The
the angle.
I don't personally feel that the haft needs to bend all that much to take out force from your opponent. So the construction, basically, I take the end of the haft and I make a cone out of it that's small enough to just fit into the spearhead. You'll notice all the spearheads have some fitted hole on the bottom for the haft to go into. So shave that down to a cone, fit it on there tightly so that it goes in at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and then I use strapping tape long ways down the entire outside. And you can't see the strapping tape except maybe just barely under here. Once I have all the strapping tape long ways around the entire spearhead, then I wrap another layer of strapping tape around that horizontally, to hold all of that down. And then finally, I put on the sacrificial layer of duct tape on the outside to keep the strapping tape from getting damaged. So it's really a combination of the pressure created by the cone-shaped tip of the haft going into the rubber spearhead and the strapping tape holding it onto the spear. Several of these spears were taped up years ago and have not come off at all. So this strapping tape method actually works very well. And then of course the duct tape serves as a sacrificial layer for that. On the heel, often what I do now, if you haven't read the rules yet, you are not allowed to put your hand over the back of the heel and push forward. This is against the rules. You also can't couch the spear like this. So what I do, so that I know that the heel is there, I often put some tape at the end on the heel just to give me a ridge that I can feel as I'm in combat using the spear. And then some people like to put tape down the front of it. I think this was one Donovan tried to see if it would lend a little more rigidity to the rattan. I personally don't have a preference one way or the other. That's all I do on my spear. So are there any questions about construction?
What is the maximum length from John?
So the maximum length right now is, what is the maximum length?
9 feet.
Yeah, 9 foot. Yep, that's right. So, because it used to be, so yeah, maximum overall length is 9 foot for a spear, which is actually a pretty good length for a spear.
We got another one from Eric. Similarly, what is the minimum length?
The minimum length, I don't think we have a minimum length anymore, do we? Yeah, no, they
At
didn't.
some point,
They didn't.
it's adapted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there is no minimum length anymore.
Okay.
It used to be a minimum length of it used to be 6 to 8 foot was the experiment length.
Okay, another one. What about matching the length to the fighter?
Oh, that's a good point. I've got a couple of theories as far as matching the length to the fighter. I believe that there's two things you have to consider, and I am no expert on what length works for everybody. I know what length of spear works for me, and that's about a 6 foot spear is what I prefer. But I also prefer a dueling spear. So I think if you're looking at spears and you're looking at a melee spear, it's going to be longer, and your dueling spear is going to be shorter. But I don't have a good answer on what a good rule of thumb is for overall length. We'll see if somebody else has a good answer on that for matching the fighter. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. From John again. Is there any talk about going longer? It says 12 feet to get to the closer length of a pike.
No. Yes. Not that I know of. The SCA. Well, there's always talk about it, but right now there's nothing in the works to get a longer spear out there. Well, I know on the ship side they've talked about going out. You know, I mean, in period you had pikes that were upwards of 24 foot or longer than that. But right now, I don't think that anybody is talking about going any longer. If we do, we would have to start talking about using fiberglass or something other than rattan. And so that's the big problem facing people with longer spears is what material is used for the longer spears.
I have a question from the experiment process. And what did you found there? But I'm not sure if that is out of scope of the class.
What did I find in the experiment? We did lots of experiments.
Well,
over the years. There were many different spears. Spears people on this probably don't even remember. There were spears that had these. They were PVC things with springs in them at one point, and all kinds of crazy stuff that I've seen out there. One thing I can tell you that I found is I like a more rigid haft, and I like the rubber tips better. Those are the two things. Oh, and that the rubber tips are in some cases so light when they strike that some cases people will complain that they can't feel being struck by the rubber tips.
More, I had a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was more of a question of, are there things y'all found in the experiment that were basically not safe actions to do? There's so little given on the society rules as to what's safe, what's not. For those from kingdoms that weren't part of any experiment, kind of a guideline of, hey, y'all really shouldn't do this thing.
What when we had with the steel spears, I could give you a litany of things that we found that were extremely unsafe. The primary problem with the steel spear was that at just the right angle, the spear could torque in such a way that it didn't flex when it hit your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
We have not found that with the rubber spears.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you
I'll be
mentioned
honest, I think for the most part, percussive hits are one thing you want to watch out for.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to watch out where you parry your opponent, because you can smack some people's knuckles.
Because I remember you mentioning not being able to cup the end, but that isn't in the society rules. I think it was in the experimental rules.
Not being able to what?
To cup the butt of the spear. When you talked about how to hold it, how you couldn't put your hand over the
But
the butt of the spear.
Is that not in the? I think that's in the new rules, isn't it?
Nope. Not the society level.
We had just went through that because we were just coming up with the Onstioran rule changes that we were going to implement. Okay, I have to go look back through that and see. I'll be honest with you. I've been dealing with the CNT stuff more because I'm the Onstioran CNT marshal right now. So I didn't pay attention. I haven't paid as much attention to the spear side of the new manual as I should probably. But I would say then don't do that, and at your kingdom level, you should probably push for that rule change if it's not in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to recommend to our KRM for when he's going over the kingdom rule sets.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's the most unsafe thing. I don't know, Anastasia, you've used the Spirit. Can you think of it? I can't think of with the rubber tipped ones, something unsafe that's not covered. That's probably the biggest thing, honestly.
Yeah,
Even couching the spear isn't that big of a deal. It's very, in my opinion, my personal opinion, especially with the Purple Heart spear tips, and there are some that are even flimsier than these. It's very difficult to actually hurt somebody.
Okay.
I've got a question going back to what Ernesto was saying. Ernesto, what were you saying about holding the butt? That where you're at, that is allowed or not allowed or being discussed?
It's not in the society rules, but it was in the experimental rules that they used.
That you could do it or you could not?
You could not during the experiment from what the rules I had seen, but it is not mentioned in society rules.
Okay, all right.
But there is something that you can't lock your arm. You can't brace your arms like a pike. That wouldn't be allowed.
Okay, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I come
like
from
putting it on the butt like this.
Yeah.
I come from a pike background from English Civil War reenacting, where that's very much what you do. So the prospect that you shouldn't do that, that you'd have to, rather than cup it at the butt, that you'd have to hold it. I'm just looking at it and thinking how that works.
Exactly.
What's the heavy combat rule on that?
You cannot cup the end of the heel. You cannot put your hand over the heel on the shiv side. It's very specifically a rule on chivalric.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like you should match that in light combat.
Was anything done in the experiment with one-handed use of spears?
With the what now? Say that again.
With one-handed use of spears? So like spear and rotella?
Yeah, one-handed is legal. It's
Okay.
legal.
I didn't know if y'all done anything with it or
There were
not. So.
problems with it. I mean, other than if you're not strong enough to use a one-handed spear, then then you'll have problems with it. Depending on the rattan, sometimes the rattan can be heavier than ash.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird thing, but also because of the rigidity problems with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one-handed is perfectly legal.
Okay.
So I've got another question about the pike heads or the spearheads. What specific rubber are they using on those? I understand right now they're going with some specific vendors that are approved, but down the road, let's say that I wanted to make my own, what rubber, do we know what rubber they're using to mold those or to cast those?
I have no idea.
The website's wooden
Woodensword.com. Yeah, it's Purple Heart Armory at woodensword.com. And I would get a hold of them to ask them.
Okay.
I could only make things up about that. I have no understanding of the different types of rubber.
Okay.
I do know that some of these are many years old now and have not had any failures.
Okay. The reason I ask is at some point, I mean, I've done rubber casting. So at some point I might want to cast a slightly different design that had cheek peaks or cheek pieces that could allow attachment further down the haft.
Mm-hmm. I think there is a design like that. Yeah.
Okay.
What's Johann's last name? John Epler on Facebook, but Johann, he's the headmaster at the Tulsa Tattersall School, and he had one out at a HEMA event we went to a couple months ago.
Okay. All right.
I can't remember where he said he got it, but yeah, it was the design you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's some that have the sort of teardrop shape, and there's lots of different variants that are out there. So
That's Purple Heart Armory.
Purple Heart Armory, or just go to woodensword.com.
wooden swords.
Wooden Swords. Woodenswords.com.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, I've got a break. I have a child here that would like to stab me with a sword.
Or a spear. I'd be okay with practicing with the spear.
Or a spear too.
Yeah.
There we see. And
Thank
so I appreciate everybody joining us. Mistress Rhiannon, once again, I really appreciate all the hard work you've put into organizing these classes. I hope I didn't waste anybody's time. I hope I didn't bore anybody. And we'll talk to everybody on the internet. Take care, guys.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Orlando.
Orlando, can I plug next week's classes real quick?
Oh, yeah. Listen up for next week's classes.
Okay, the 19th, we have Rapier Culture. That's a requested class. It was something to go along with what the Roses did and the cadet class. So more in-depth look at the culture of Rapier. And Maudie, Kale, Domingo from Outlands, and Don Bryan are going to present that. And then we have equipment care. So how to take care of your blades and stuff, get the rust off, because it might be kind of rusty right now. On Thursday, and dagger drills with Miles Ridley on Thursday. And we have a Friday class next week with Marguerite Mendelis from North Shield on teaching different gender roles. So men teaching women and women teaching men, and what you need to know.
Excellent.
Cool.
What
Okay.
day is Marguerite's class?
Friday.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
I assume you know her?
Yeah. Her husband was my Don way back when.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure. We just were told that we were having a mod meeting that Thursday. So, and that just came in, so I didn't know if that had happened, if that was conflicting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's on Friday.
Okay.
Okay, well, hey, thank you again, everybody. And thank you too, Rhiannon. Have a good night, guys.
Orlando.
All
Have a
right.
good week.
Thank you.
Good night,
I'll
Orlando.
be posting everything online here shortly.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.